So why am I doing this? I'm starting this podcast because we all have a story and finances play a part in our struggles and successes. If we can learn from the many mistakes many others have made, we can make sure that more of us are successful. Like the quote says, to increase the chances of success, we must increase our failure rate. To be honest, I failed a ton. I will bring people from all walks of life, but mostly service members. If you have a story you would like to share, do not hesitate to reach out. From the go, like and subscribe to this podcast so many others can benefit. So for this next episode of the Financial Enabler podcast, we have the Nickest of Nicks. He's probably known for social media, an ops and planning guru. We're going to talk about his story, his finances, maybe some failures. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we're here. We're stoked about this. Obviously, shout out to some brands. In this case, Kinetic Nutrition. And I have the good old Sangan watch with the Zane's strap for the leather lovers. Do you happen to have any of this? You have a Sangan by any chance? Or
We'll not have a singing yet.
Oh man, it's pretty exclusive for what I've seen. I feel very lucky. I was in the same team with the guy. Not that makes me cool or anything. I just, fortune, right place, right time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. What's your story? What are you doing now? What's your background?
Okay, so I joined the Marine Corps in 2007, right out of high school. Went in as an 0311, did that for about 10 years. As I was getting out of the Marine Corps, decided that I wasn't happy, wasn't really happy getting out. It was just circumstances. So, talked to my wife, convinced her that I should go in the Army. It was, I still wanted to do this type of work. When I was ETS, what does the Marine Corps say? Not ETS.
EAS.
EAS, yeah, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
We're
so good.
But I EAS from the Marine Corps, was on terminal for about 2 months. I managed to get a job as security guard at a casino because we had moved to Carson City. When the guy hired me, he was like, "Hey, look, man, you're not gonna make a whole lot. It's only be like $11." I was like, "All right, whatever." So I was talking to my wife about it, and she was not very happy about it because I had put in quite an amount of work, the years in, but I had did some security contracting type schooling, whatever. Used my GI Bill for that, but she wasn't really fond of the work I was getting, considering the background I had. So she just said, "I just go tomorrow, go to the Army recruiter," and I did, and I EAS'd in May, and 1 week later I went to MEPS again and went to the Army, where I've been ever since.
So again, I don't think we were expecting to walk into this, but what were the effects? What were you guys feeling as a family when you saw that you were going to make $11?
Well, so it was shocking, but having to find a job wasn't the problem. It was, my dad was supposed to give me a job in his company. I've been planning that for years. I'd say probably 3 years. He and I were planning that. And even before I met my wife and got married, that was what I was going to do. I was going to move up to Carson City with him and work. So we had a really good, solid plan. He was going to be supportive, give me a job that was going to work around my schedule going to school. So as I was trying to bank on the BAH of going to school full time and having a side job for the extra income, and my wife was going to work. But 2 months before I got out, he said, "Hey, I gave your job to your brother." So 3 years of planning just went out the window, down the drain. And yeah, it was hard because didn't really know what was up there. Other than law enforcement, which I was looking into. But it was they weren't open at the time taking applications, so I had to figure out I had to find something.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, before we dive into your future life, what can you tell me about, your upbringing, your financial scripts? Like, what did you hear about in your life, and how did it affect you? Like how people say money doesn't grow on trees. Do you have anything like that you remember?
No, unfortunately, my parents didn't really teach me much growing up. Um,
Yeah.
I was, mm, I guess, for the most part, neglected a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how to explain it. My parents were focused on their own things a lot, it seemed. Um, my mom, my mom is still is kind of like a poor me mentality type of person. Uh,
Yeah.
Always seeking, people feel sorry for her. And then my stepdad was pretty much if it didn't involve some kind of nutrition or Bible study, the church, he didn't really care about it.
Yeah.
So um, having conversations with them was pretty hard because if it didn't spark their interest, they didn't really want to talk about it a lot. Um,
Man, that's tough.
yeah, so growing up, I mean, I'm sure you remember as a kid, like you hear guys say like weird slang terms and stuff like that, or like, talking about girls and stuff like that. It's like I grew up as the guy who didn't know what any of that was, they're talking about,
Really?
and um, this was the day and age before you can just Google anything. We had dial up in our house, so I couldn't just go on the computer and say, "Hey, what is this mean?" So I was kind of a loner and the oddball out growing up, and then on top of that, I really couldn't talk to my parents about things because it seemed like they had no interest most of the time.
Yeah. And
So
I apologize right now. I'm having my dog is annoying me. So here in the podcast, we're live. So it's not that I'm ignoring you. So dude, that's a lot to deal with. And I'll say this for the audience. When I asked Nick to get on this podcast, it's because we're not alone, right? And the reality is that what you're dealing with, somebody's dealing with, and or have dealt with. You've or are here now a force in good in the military. So it's we want to share this that we're all in our journey and it's tough, right? So I really appreciate your candor. I appreciate your honesty with your own hardships because it clearly forms us, and some of that plays into the role of the man that cares about our community so much, right? So it's pretty incredible. So I appreciate you being here, being so candid with it, with such a tough upbringing, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I appreciate you talking about it. I think that's hard, and I think that I'm a correlate it now to the mental issues that we talk in the military, and not enough guys are open to talk about it. So here it is, a guy that we can look up to, a guy that we respect in the community that is doing incredible good to make more lethal warriors. It is dealt with it, it's overcoming with it, and you probably deal with it often, but you're still not. It's not going to slow you down through your path to greatness.
hmm
That's cool, man. I really appreciate that. So tough upbringing, neglect, not a lot of financial education, and then you have hardship. You ended up joining the army. How has your time in the army been? What skills did you bring in? What caused all that? How's that all been for you?
Uh, so the first year was pretty tough. It was an adjustment culture wise. Um, I was a E5 sergeant when I came in, so I got to keep my rank. But um, you and I, from being Marines, like an E5 is is someone. It means something, right?
Yeah, it's everything.
So like even a E4 corporal, is a big deal. Um, it's not the same in the army. Um, like you're an NCO, but you're looked down on kind of. You're just another worker. You're given like all the tasks to do.
Yeah.
It's not the same as like a Marine sergeant.
So do you find yourself empowering those E5s and E4s now that you've been in there for a while, or is the system totally against it?
Um, it depends who you work. It depends on your leadership. Um,
Yeah.
my first platoon I was ever in, the platoon sergeant didn't see it that way. Pretty much if you weren't at least a staff sergeant, you're nobody to him.
Mm.
Um, he definitely had favorites within the platoon, but I mean, I kind of like didn't care because I was used to that in the Marine Corps. Um,
Yeah.
um, but it was a lot of like proving myself that I could do the job. It's kind of weird. Best analogy is like you know how like in the O3 world, you ever you worked with O3s, right? Like infantry,
Yeah.
not like not recon or MARSOC guys, but like regular infantry guys.
Yeah.
So,
My first EOD deployment was just with straight leg infantrymen.
yeah, so you know how cocky they can be, like pretty hard head.
Hmm.
So interestingly, I would say Army infantry guys are not as cocky. Um, they're cocky, but like I think Scouts 19 Deltas are a little bit more. And that's because they like to brag about how they didn't have to have a higher GT score to be a Cav Scout. But um, I would, if I could, I would. If they said, "Hey, would you go infantry back?" Like, absolutely. I was trying to go back infantry, but like, so I still like, love them and all, but
Yeah.
um, they looked down on me because I wasn't grown up as a scout.
Oh.
So they're like, "Oh, you know this, you know that." I was like, "Dude, I've been doing your kind of stuff since I was like 18 years old. And I'm pretty sure I've done more
Yeah.
of it." Like I had it was bad. I had to throw that at them. I was like, I'm pretty sure I've done way more stuff in my time in the Marine Corps than you've done your whole career.
What is the closest thing out of a Cav Scout unit? Besides, I'm assuming LAR, but
Yes.
is Cat like Cav Scout?
Uh, so LAR for sure is like the equivalent. I would also say probably cat team kind of.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, only thing I would go on. Only thing I would add though is like I'm not sure if cat teams do scouting per se.
Right.
Um, they probably would. I know some of them probably do like some route reconnaissance really quick just for the battalion. But comparison wise, Cav Scouts and LAR would be the same because in Cav Squadron you're doing reconnaissance for the entire brigade, and just like in LAR, they're doing reconnaissance for the whole division.
Got it, man. So I'm sorry about that. My dog is being annoying. So here we are doing it live, right?
Yep.
So that's very different. So you came into a different world. You had to adjust.
Hmm.
Do you feel that you've been successful in your 6 years in the army? You've been able to overcome a lot of this, or not?
Yes,
And if not, why?
absolutely. So my first deployment in the army with that platoon was probably the roughest it's been ever.
Yeah.
Um, when I got back from Iraq, because when I went through the training to be a Cav Scout, went to my unit and went straight to Iraq with them.
Hmm.
So, but when we got back, it was after post deployment leave. We're in the motor pool getting ready to go out to the field for something, and out of nowhere, I start having a panic attack, like just
Wow.
out of nowhere. Um, it was like I started tearing up,
Hmm.
and like I remember I was like walking with my clipboard because I was going down my checklist because I had like a lot of things. I was like making sure we did all these tasks before lunch and trying to figure out okay what we still had to do after lunch. And like as I'm walking, I'm like starting to tear up, and I'm starting to do that like sound with my lip with my mouth, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the heck is going on? And so I'm fighting it back, and I'm like, like we're about to break for lunch. I'm like, hey, okay, you whatever, go this and that. And when everybody left, I had to run to behind a Connex box and like to hide from everybody. And like it just started coming out, but like I wasn't like sobbing, crying. It was just like tearing. I was like, breathing hard, you know, and I was like, what the heck is going on? So one of my guys saw me. He was like, dude, are you okay? It's like, I don't know, man. Like, get one of the sergeants, one of the staff sergeants. Like, I don't feel right. Something's wrong. So, um, I didn't go out to the field. The next day, I went to the headquarters troop, like a company, same headquarters company. And the first sergeant that I was in Iraq with in my old company troop was the new first sergeant for them. So he pulled me and he pretty much was like, he sat me down. I was like, hey, I heard what happened. You're going to S3 and you're gonna go take care of yourself until you get better. I was like, okay. It's like, um, but he didn't have to say. But he was like, if you take advantage of this, like I'm not gonna do anything else for you. But like, he's like, get better, and took care of me.
Wow.
So because so when that happened, I went to S3, and then I went and started working for a new platoon sergeant, and this guy showed me like a whole different side that I'd never seen before. It
Yeah.
was like cool. Like had a panic attack, and I'm getting a really great getting really good experience in the S3 and having a great leadership to work with.
Wow, man, that is incredible. And I feel that, dude, because it's the military is that hard, right? And there's young men and women right now that are either having those panic attacks or about to have them, and no leadership is covering for them, and it's so difficult to overcome that, right? So I mean, kudos to that man that was able to do that. Um, so after the S3, you are PCS. You eventually PCS to where you're at now, right?
Oh no, it wasn't right away.
Okay.
I was in S3 for just over a year.
Okay.
Um, we were on the border doing, border mission stuff, and I was on the fence of getting out again.
Yeah.
I was getting up again, but my wife was like, "You know what? Just go the 20. You're already at 13 now. Just might as well finish it."
Yeah.
So I was like, "All right, cool." Did what I had to do to very much get qualified to stay in. Went back to what we call, the line to back to I went to a different troop, and I became a section squad leader there. And I got promoted to staff sergeant, did my squad leader time, um, pretty much almost 2 years, and then now I'm here.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you worked out. And you're a staff sergeant right now.
Yes,
Okay, cool. So with that, the first question, because you did that deployment to Iraq. Was that a 6 month or a year deployment?
it was a 9 month.
9 month. So I mean, what have you done with your, deployment money, your HCIPs? Is that something,
Oh,
and if it's all gone, it's all
oh yeah,
gone, right? This is the less,
it's all gone. I did what everybody would do.
yeah,
But you know, I had that mentality of, I'll make more, I'll make more. I got time.
yeah,
And you don't really understand how fast time goes until like all of a sudden you're at 15 years. You're like, what?
yeah.
It's like
So,
still feels like I just joined the army and I got out of the Marines. Sometimes it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like almost six. It's been 6 years now.
Yeah, I always say that. I'm like, and I feel very young at heart, and I'm like, I'm an E8. I was like, I can yell at people. Well, I don't yell at E3s. I like yelling at people my rank because whatever. That's right. I feel the biggest gap is in the military. Uh, so, what advice would you tell people to do with deployment money, with re-enlistment money, hazardous duty pay? What is something that you think you would do different now, knowing what you've been through?
Definitely not spend it all. I never, I never realized how, I don't want to say, I guess, easy to get a house and land is. How attainable it really is. Um,
Hmm.
and if I would have understood that, I probably would have put my priorities to that sooner.
Okay.
Sooner.
And you and I have spoken about that land is a big deal for you.
Yes.
What are your plans to do with land? Where are you going with this?
So I'm planning to buy some land, and probably the biggest I can afford for right now.
Hmm.
We want to turn it into like our own little homestead farm, build our home,
Yeah.
So that way we can be, raising chickens, goats, and cows, growing our own crops, stuff like that. And that'll be for us. And simultaneously be running my business on my land, on my property.
Cool. What kind of business do you have besides the social media?
Uh,
Or is that the business?
so it's going to be a training company.
Cool.
Um, Not going to be doing any like the firearm stuff that is dominating, but focusing on the skills that citizens need to learn other than just shooting a gun.
That's very so funny how life is, how this, the podcast that I did before, it was with a seer guy. And we kind of overlook how those guys are masters of fieldcraft, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are like, they're made to live in the field for extended, well, even though they goes to be a short period of time, I'm sure they could be there much longer than most of us, with less. And, like you said, the firearm community dominates the training aspects, but there's so much more to that. And we're not even going to talk about ops and planning, but like logistics, medical,
Mm-hmm.
just daily survival, daily living, right? There's just so much more to long-term exposure in a moment of chaos than your gun, right? So that, I think you have a pretty good niche there, and that's awesome. So you're definitely going to put it towards land, real estate. With that, what would you say is the worst advice that you ever got in? And if you can open to share from whom, that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, um, I don't know. I don't think I've ever had any bad advice, to be honest, because,
Good.
um,
What about negative role model?
oh, that, shoot. My parents definitely. Um, Really, my whole mom side of the family too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Definitely guys that I've had to work with in the Marine Corps and the Army.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, I got, I can pick quite a bit.
Yeah. So would you say that maybe not in the moment, but in hindsight, did seeing the things they were doing wrong has ever helped you?
Yes. Fortunately, I learned that in the Marine Corps. When you're going through corporal's course, they teach you about leadership, and it's like, hey, well, actually, before that, was my first squad leader. He would, he was really big on teaching us how to be a leader one day.
Mm-hmm.
Because he went to Iraq twice. So his mindset was really like, hey, I can die any moment on deployment, and one of you might have to take over. Like, he was really big and like instilling that because he's seen it.
Yeah.
Like, he had to be a team leader like on his first deployment as a brand new Marine because his team leader went down.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
he lived that and he was big on that and believed in it. So
Yeah.
in doing that, he taught us like, hey, um, just because like a lot of guys look up to him doesn't mean he's perfect. There's still things he does wrong that I may not like. You can still take those bad examples as examples of what not to do. He
Right.
luckily he was one of those guys and taught us that.
Right. Wow. That's pretty cool. Do you still talk to him?
Unfortunately, no.
Mm.
Like a lot of guys, they move on and change their numbers, and like this was also before social media was as big as it is now. So
Yeah.
staying in contact and people like and the chances of him even having one or being active on it is very low.
Yeah. 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 I do find that a lot of them don't have it, which is I get it. I'm not going to tell them that it's a good thing, but clearly you and I have been very fortunate to benefit from the positive aspects of it,
Right.
and not just be a purely negative voice. And you and I and the guys that I had the last podcast that I've recorded, positive voices in the social media space. So it's pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about the Nickest of Nicks. How did it come about?
So I started that in 2019 when I was on the border mission with my last unit. Um, it was going to be a fitness journey blog type of stuff because I was finally getting back into shape, and uh, a lot of fitness guys, they just like, oh, check out this crazy workout I'm going to do. Like, okay, cool, but what about the people who are starting, you know, like because that's one thing I've kind of seen in a lot of industries is like you can do something for a while
Yeah.
and kind of forget what it's like being the new guy sometimes.
Yeah.
So I saw a gap in that, and that's what I was going to try to do. Didn't work out, obviously. So I changed. I was going to try to do the gun tuber stuff.
Gotcha.
Um, and that's harder, I would say, than trying to do a fitness blog style because there's so many guys out there who are doing, gun reviews, gear reviews, whatever, stuff like that. So it's hard to stick out. Plus, it seems to be everyone follows the same trend, and I didn't really like doing that.
Yeah.
Um, if anyone ever, if any of my YouTube followers, you know, remember some of my older stuff, you might be able to pick out in my voice and hear like I don't really like talking about like a battle belt or a pack. It's boring to me. Like I get nothing out of it. It's like it's a back.
Yeah.
Like I can put my stuff in here and carry it. Cool.
Yeah.
But so that obviously that wasn't really taking off. And then it was like 20. Well, it was actually last year. Shoot. So 2022. Um, the Garand Thumb Recce rifle video of, like in the mountains, came out,
Hmm.
and then in the gun community, like that was like all the rage, and it was like getting crazy. Uh, People were just like, "Oh, check out, like here's my rifle, this, my Recce rifle," and like, dude, it's literally the exact same gun as the other one. Like, I see nothing different, you know.
Yeah.
But it was it was actually starting to annoy me because I was seeing a lot of these influencers who have no actual experience or background trying to tell other people about reconnaissance kind of mentality stuff, and I was like, all right, this has gone too far. Like, so I made a post and it took off. Like,
Wow.
whoa.
What was the post about?
It was real Recce quote Recce making fun of the word Recce loadout
Yeah.
using the acronym Cworms. So, um, it,
I'm not familiar. What is sea worms?
so yeah, so Cworms is in the 3-20.98
Okay.
scout platoon for the Army,
Hmm.
and it's really actually for for like when you go into an observation post, an OP. So it's your compass, your weapons, um, observation. Oh, I'm sorry,
Optics radios?
optics, radios. Yep, maps.
Yeah.
Sustainment gear, right?
Yeah.
And I applied it to basically civilians and what their loadout should look like for that kind of a mission set.
Wow.
Really got into it was like, it's not just for, recon or whatever. It's really just for everything that you're
Yeah.
do this kind of stuff in because it's like, yeah, you need some kind of navigation. You need obviously the weapon, but it's the right weapon setup, observation, your optics. So, that's like people always want to ask, like, well, should I get a red dot? Should I get scope? Whatever, It's like, well,
Yeah.
like really just diving into like, hey, how do you actually look at this and figure out what you're going to do? Um,
Interesting. Which, by the way, I don't know the acronym. I just correlated optics and radios. That was just pure correlation.
yeah. So I mean, um, someone with a bigger profile of me, saw it, shared it, and just started like, uh,
Yeah, growing.
so I just started making more posts around doctrine type stuff and
Hmm.
tailoring it to civilian application, trying to explain it easier.
Yeah.
Um, and also too, like my big thing with it is like making sure people understand like the doctrine is not set in stone. It's just guidance.
Yeah.
Really trying to make them understand like it's just because it says this doesn't mean it's like absolute.
Yeah.
So
And so, with your focus in delivering to the civilian audience, you don't love gear. What is your take on purchasing gear, and what would you tell a young infantryman to whether to buy it or not, if he was allowed, of course?
um I would say wait a few months, wait a few field exercises, right?
Hmm.
Um watch your senior guys how they set their stuff up, see what they're running, ask
Hmm.
questions of, what is that for? What does that do? And then slowly go from there. Just kind of like figure out step by step of like what don't I like right now? What is bothering me? Um, I would say not a plate carrier first.
Yeah.
Um,
What would be the first piece of gear you would buy if you were back at square one?
Probably. Well, shoot, I gotta think of how the Marine Corps stuff is right now.
No, just in
Oh,
general, as a in general.
back then probably some really good saw pouches.
Saw
I
pouches.
was
What about now? If you were starting it today, if you're at E3 today, what would you buy?
probably a way to carry all 27 magazines IAR gunners carry.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
honestly, that's that was probably yeah, because when that thing came out and I see the mags that they give them, and it's like, well, how are they going to carry them?
Yeah.
Like, there's no answer to that. And
Yeah.
it was the
There's
same
no
as a
answer.
ball gunner. It's like, okay, I got 1,000 rounds, but how am I going to carry all this? You guys aren't giving me anything. I have to go buy my own pouches.
Yeah.
So
It's tough.
like saw gunners and machine gunners don't get love when it comes to gear.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, and buying gear is tough. I was just talking to somebody earlier that like how oftentimes the gear is good and you really got to analyze what is the shortfall. And in your case in point, don't buy a plate carrier, don't buy a belt, buy the right pouch, right? And,
Some,
and that really changes your mindset.
yeah, something that's just going to make it a little more enjoyable, I guess.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, that's a good.
pouches are probably a good starting point because standard issue mag pouches are trash for the most part. They're not the greatest. They
Yeah,
get the job done, but it can be done better.
for sure, for sure. On to the next thing. So, what is the best advice you've ever gotten?
Dude, honestly, when like, I called you a few months ago and asked about my TSP,
Oh, really?
yes.
Cool.
Well, probably Blake, honestly. I'll go
Yeah,
back farther because I asked him, like, hey, uh, do you know where to find that post about the G fund? And
yeah,
he sent me to you. Hey, talk to him. I was like, all right. So I guess that would be the best advice. Talk to you.
yeah. Well, I'm glad that worked out. And I'm about to once we're done with this, I'm about to send you something I found about TSP.
Okay.
I believe is the hustle, but again, there's some risks associated to it. But I think it's better because it's a strategy, not just buy and hold. I just started it a week ago, so
Okay.
I'm in talks with the website, but I don't want to mention them yet to see what we can work out for service members. So cool. So TSP, I'm glad that worked out, and TSP is a big deal. Are you on BRS or Legacy? I don't remember.
Legacy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And Legacy is good. Go ahead.
Yeah. They were rolling in the new one when I came in the army,
Yeah,
and luckily I knew how to like research it quickly to make my decision. It was like this is to me it was dumb. It was
yeah,
on like it. My opinion is that the government knows young guys are not financially savvy, and that's where they're
yeah,
banking on. You
yeah.
know,
They are.
very few guys come in understanding and disciplined to manage their money right to get the most
Yeah.
out of it. So it's just a way to save money and say like, oh, it's better. Like that's my view.
Yeah. I generally agree, and hopefully we can change that so that they can maximize that money and not just be like the way the government keeps them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So if you if you had to start over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Financially, did you maximize TSP? I know we said not about HAP now, but did you use TSP at all, even when you're in the Marine Corps?
I did. But this was 2007 when I came in and set it up. So
Mm-hmm.
even the people who were teaching us it didn't really know much about it.
Sure.
Um, they just told you like, here, fill out this. You probably remember too in boot camp, the little like white slip like this with
Yep.
the TSP paper. Like write down how much you want to save a month into it, and that's it. You know.
Yeah.
So and that was it. That was all we got.
Yeah. I remember that, and I remember like coming out years later because I didn't know about where to check it for years, and I was like, man, I'm really glad I was saving this, but I had no idea. Um, so you said that last year you told me that you had a business fail. Was that the gun tuber or you had something
No,
else?
I had a legitimate business. It was LLC and everything.
What was it, if you can
The
share?
pressure washing business.
Okay.
So,
What if, because again, a big theme in this podcast is that we want to talk about failures.
hmm
Because again, we got to AR our life, and hopefully somebody is listening and takes note. What what led to the failure? What would you do different? What would you share?
um, so I had a bunch of gear in my garage I was trying to get rid of. So I was selling it, and I had a lot. Like I had like a couple $1,000s worth of gear. So I put all on eBay, and I was looking at how much I was making, and I was like, well, I can just go spend this on something that I want right now, or I could figure out a way to make more money out of this money. And that's kind
Yeah.
of what I did. So I finally had like a light bulb moment, finally. And I just kind of like started researching like what I could do on the side. Um, I can't remember exactly what led me to it, but I had a pressure washer in my house already. It was an electric one. And I just started watching pressure washing videos for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
seeing how people were like making good money on the side doing this and even full on businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this. Started watching guys like their advice and all. I was like, okay, decided, I'm gonna do it because I know it's a risk, but like whatever. So I took the $3,000 I made from my gear, and I took a loan out for another $3,000 to get started. Um, I would say that's my first mistake was taking a loan out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went and looked for like the best commercial pressure washer I could find to do what everything I wanted, and I wanted to get like as much equipment as I could just to clean houses.
Yeah.
So that way I could like, hey, if someone asked me, can you do this? I could do it. I was able to do everything. Actually, I was able to do everything from soft washing to press washing driveways.
Wow.
I didn't have a full on soft washing tank system, but I I had what's called an X jet, and it's basically just a
Yeah.
nozzle that you attach to the front, and you put the hose. You put the hose that sucks your solution through, and
Mm-hmm.
as it shoots it out, it mixes it with the water, so I can
Yeah.
clean all the mold off the house with the soap and chlorine.
Right.
That's why it's called soft wash. But I had
Yeah.
everything. I had the pressure washer, I had the surface cleaner, I had the gutters cleaner, the X jet, like you name it, I had it.
Yeah. And what happened? What caused the failure of the business?
Just couldn't get any customers. Uh,
Mm.
I mean, I did everything manual. I cleaned my lieutenant's house for free to get some footage of me doing it. I cleaned my house. I would record myself. Um, I managed to get one customer, recorded that as well. So I would record myself doing it in like a time lapse or yeah, time lapse,
Yeah.
and put it on the business Instagram and all that, just trying to get like people to see like what I can do.
Yeah.
That way, like, hey, this is my product. This is what I can do,
Yeah.
right? Like just all that. And like, I just couldn't get any people, like any customers. That was it.
Yeah. The art of marketing is sales, marketing, providing a product is all different skills. And so what would you say is the greatest lesson that you learned from that business?
Don't commit to buying a bunch of equipment unless you have the clientele.
Yeah, it's big.
I mean, um, kind of why I've gone the approach I am now with trying to do this new business.
Yeah.
Um, with my Instagram, growing as fast as it did, um, I was able to start a Patreon. So now the classes I put out monthly are subscription based.
Yeah.
So the plan is that, like, okay, I'm running I'm essentially I'm running my business right now on Patreon, by subscription base. So for me, it's pretty much zero risk,
Yeah.
because if everyone just unsubscribes, it's like, okay, cool, I just lose subscribers. I don't have to pay any fees. I don't have to pay any, like, insurance and none of that stuff I had to do with the LLC, right? Like, you have to pay the state that your LLC is in to go out of business, which is stupid, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sorry, your business is out, but
Pay
man
out.
wants this money still.
Yeah. Overhead costs go a long ways, and with the Patreon, you got nothing. So that's pretty cool. That's good, pretty cool with that. So and again, business is ties to finance. So this is some big lessons. And clearly, for what I've seen, your business is going to be massively successful. And you were telling me that you just launched something different. You want to share with that, in case any of the audience from the any service civilian that listens in knows what you're providing right now.
Yeah, so besides the Patreon, I decided to go ahead and start my one-on-one or group sessions on Zoom, by Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we were talking about earlier, was um, there's lots of people that want to get training, um, and a lot of these companies, they do classroom settings, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's costly on both sides. So for the business, if they're traveling, they got to travel to wherever they're going to hold the class. They got to pay the vendor. They got to make sure their insurance is all squared away.
Yeah.
Um, they got to make sure they have enough bodies in the class to pay for the expenses.
Yeah.
And that's just the business side. And the student side, they got to pay for the cost of the class. They got to pay for their travel. They got to pay for
Yeah.
the hotel, their food, and all that kind of stuff as well. So with um, with the Zoom platform, instead of students paying a lot and me having to pay a lot for something that's in a classroom environment, why not make it easier for students to go to a classroom that is cost effective for everybody?
Yeah.
So
And maybe from there they can go to a launch point to actually travel or whatever, but they're going for something that not for the stuff that you could provide in a Zoom training, right?
or any classroom really.
Yeah.
So like my plan with it is to, and maybe influence other businesses to do the same. So that way, hey, if you're going to be doing some kind of line app class for these guys, instead of wasting these guys' time when they go there with the class, they can do a Zoom class with you before they show up, like a week
Yeah.
before, like the weekend before. And when they get there, you have more time in the field, which is what they should be doing anyways.
Right.
Wasting a customer's time in the classroom when they're there to do something in the field anyways. That's how I see it.
Dude. No, that's huge. And I totally agree. If anything, for the cost savings, you could spend more practical application in the field and more bang for buck, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's so I have the same model for my my finance side. Whenever somebody wants a one-on-one, it's just on Zoom. And I try to keep as cost efficient as possible because, man, things are expensive, right? So if we're not providing the education, you want to go, the reality, a lot of things are not, you could just do on Zoom very well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deliver a quality product. So cool, man. Do you have any closing comments for your audience, for my audience? And dude, are you wearing a Britney shirt?
I am.
Let's go, dude. If you guys are on YouTube, that Britney shirt's sick. But yeah, man, any closing comments?
I mean, not really. Uh, so I am related back to what I'm doing with the Zoom class stuff. I am working with another Instagrammer up for consultation. So Digo, and we're working on
With who?
up for consultation.
Okay.
So we're working together right now to put together like a SUT primer by Zoom, and it's going to be kind of like us working together for the first time professionally, but going to bring the basics of small unit tactics by Zoom without having to go to the field, so that way guys can walk away with knowing how to plan a mission, how to develop an end course of action, and then when they go back to their guys, they can apply all that and spend more time in the field. So,
Dude, that's brilliant, dude. That is freaking cool. And I hope that you blow up. I hope that and if people ever have any questions about the Nickest of Nicks, the product, the training, massive social media presence, and clearly a voice for good for our community. So reach out to him. I'm gonna be posting your social media on there. If you mind sending me your Instagram, because I have your Instagram, your Patreon, so people can come and find you. And dude, this was great. Huge pleasure to have you. I can't wait to see the business blow up. And yeah, man, we'll probably do this again as we keep growing. And man, this was awesome, man. Have a good night.
yeah, thank you.
This podcast is not financial advice, and it only represents the opinions of those participating. Our goal is to get you to your version of financial independence. Please follow and like on every platform.